Okay, welcome everyone. Hopefully we are live. Please give me a thumbs up or in the comments that we are good. All right, welcome. So this is live from Turkey. I'm actually in Ankara, Turkey. I've come here partly to do a vacation. We haven't returned here. I was a exchange fighter pilot at a base right near where I am now, actually, at Akunja for 3 years, and I love Turkey. It's an amazing country. Haven't come back since we left in end of 2014, and so came back. My son was born here. Want to show him where he was born at the hospital. We'll go there tomorrow, and also to investigate Kumburgaz. I've been saying I would come to Turkey for a year and a half now, and I did go to Kumburgaz, and I'll give a little brief here on what I actually found, and hopefully I'll have some good videos coming up later. So I'll give a little presentation, and then after that we'll go right to your questions. Thanks to patrons for your questions and YouTube members as well, and Discord holders. If you're a UAP Society NFT holder, then you will also get early access and questions such as this. Okay, so first thing, let me share my screen here. Again, welcome to everyone for being here. If you're watching this later, again, thanks for watching. So we'll find, here we go. Okay. So this is Turkey, giant country actually, and we actually started here, flew into Istanbul, and this is the site actually, Yenikent Sitesi. Okay, so Yenikent Sitesi is where Yalçın Yalçın actually filmed all those videos from 2007, 8, and 9, actually from this site. Okay, right here. Okay, he sat in a chair. I sat in that chair. I shared the actual photo on Twitter. He sat right there, had his camera set up, and he recorded all those videos over the ocean. And we actually walked along this whole beach. A lot of awkward moments just walking up to people. I had a sign that says right here, I'll show you the sign I was using. And so I would bring this up to people, if you can see it here, show you. This actually says, UFO, have you seen one? Please share. And I had this sitting in front of my computer. I was sitting right there, and I did have a witness come up to me. Özlem came up to me. I have her number, and she shared with me actually that she knew Yalçın. I said a lot of people thought he was, that the videos weren't real, they were hoaxed, or they were lies. And she laughed and said, no, I saw him. He was there filming. I saw the videos, and she actually sees the lights. She saw them last year and the year before. And she says they don't look like airplanes because it's actually a corridor right here. Let me bring it back up. So they made a giant airport. It's called Istanbul Airport. It's huge. They paid $49 million to build it up here. $49 billion actually. And so what you have is a lot of the airplanes actually fly down. They have a route. Basically, they fly entry points. I'm sure there's an entry point here, and then they fly just along this coast here. So not to interfere with people. Obviously, you don't want to fly over houses if you can stop it. And then they do a base leg here, and I think they come into land. So she's used to seeing airplanes. And when I was there, we saw tons of airplanes. But like she said, that these were different because they would stop. So the lights would actually stop, she said, and then actually go up, down, move around, do maneuvers, and then just zip off. She said super fast, and she's seen them several times. So hopefully, I have her WhatsApp. Hopefully, she'll agree to come on an interview. But yeah, the stigma's strong here. Everyone believes in aliens actually in Turkey. Everyone I talked to actually believed in aliens. They're surprisingly open-minded. I talked with an imam. He's a priest essentially in Islam, and yeah, he says, yeah, if God created us and everything else, why couldn't He create other beings? And so, yeah, they're quite open-minded. And so, she's used to seeing these airplanes fly along here. I think one of the questions we'll see later is, what does the ground look like? So, what is the Marmaris? And this is just a very critical point in the world, right? Like on risk, the game of risk. Holding the Middle East is just very difficult. And Turkey is really a bridge. You know, it's always been a bridge below the Black Sea between East and West. And you can really tell this country, why I love it so much is it really is a mix of really East and West. Such a, yeah, they just sit right next to each other, often in opposition. And you see here the Black Sea. Okay, so Crimea is basically up here, and this is just a critical area right through here. The Bosphorus always been fought over for, you know, who knows how many thousands of years. And so the Sea of Marmaris here, this is where basically he was filming Turkey UFO. It's where he filmed it over the ocean. And when I was there, so I was there 3 nights. So yeah, 2 nights and 3 days essentially. And the first night, just stood out on the beach. There was nobody out there, and looking around, and I couldn't. The cruise ship idea just did not make any sense. Actually, looking out there, okay, there are some lights down low. You can see across the bay here. You can actually see across the bay, but as far as 7 degrees above the horizon, I just don't see how that would be possible. You know, it just wouldn't be possible from what I saw. There was nothing up high. These islands, you know, you can barely see them, and down low. So there are maybe a few lights, but it's not like what we've seen in the videos. And so, yeah, just talking to her. I also found one other witness. I did get a video interview with him walking along the beach. He was a younger guy, and he actually did see back in 2009, he saw the same lights from down here, a little bit further down the beach. So he saw the same lights. A lot of people knew about it, but like I said, a lot of people still didn't want to talk about it. And Özlem, you know, she only speaks Turkish, so I'm not sure if she'll come on the show. But that was the kind of the first investigation. I do have some witnesses. I do have a connection. Hopefully, we hear more. But really, just talking to her, I got the impression that it's not fake. Yalman, he moved to Tekirdağ, so he left there. I couldn't actually get an interview with him, but hopefully I will sooner or later. So yeah, very interesting, and it just secured in my mind that it wasn't a hoax. Okay, you know, would a video interview with Özlem change anyone's mind about this? Probably not. But for me, going there just for my own gratification is, yeah, I think it was legit. So there will be more to come on that, and I'll share those videos. So next, where do we go? We went to, from there, we drove to my favorite monument site. I shared this actually as a small short. And what this is out in the middle of nowhere, this is called Yazılı, which means written rock. And we just found this place randomly. And it's just this amazing structure. If I can show you here. This, I mean, you just walk up out in this village. It's just a one donkey village out there. And written into these crazy rocks all over the place, drawn in, is this monument. And it's 17 meters tall, right? So, you know, basically a person stands about that tall, 17 meters tall. And at the top here is the inscription to King Midas. And that's from 700 BC. That's actually where I talked to the imam, if he had actually seen any aliens. He said he hadn't, but he did believe in it. So that's Yazılı, quite interesting. And from there, let's see if this works. We actually went to Ankara here. Okay, so now we're actually, this is where I'm recording from right now live. So thanks everybody for being here. In Ankara, basically an Airbnb down in the south. Ankara is it's the capital actually of Turkey, and it's just amazing the level of construction that they have here. I mean, it's unbelievable. Giant buildings everywhere. The construction is just going nuts. I don't recognize the city actually coming back. It's insane. Even with the crazy inflation they've had, the Turks know how to construct for sure. And then so the day after tomorrow, we will be driving to Cappadocia. And what's interesting down here, and I've heard a couple people mention this, is Derinkoyu. So that actually means deep city. So Derinkoyu is this underground city. They have these amazing underground cities. I haven't seen this one. I've heard about it. I've been to another underground. It wasn't quite this big, but actually looks kind of similar. Maybe we have been to Derinkoyu, actually, now that I think about it, looking at the picture here. But you have these underground cities that date back thousands of years. it's just unbelievable when you look at the actual mass of structures under the ground, how much is actually here. And we had planned to go to the south to Gobekli Tepe. Okay, we'd planned to go over here, but the earthquake had really just destroyed Hatay, is this region down here in Antakya. There's like a little group cut out from Syria. This is Syria here. And then there's a little area of land cut out here. That's Hatay, a beautiful area, famous in Turkey for its food, unbelievable food. Künefe, that's where it comes from. Iskender is this amazing dish. If you've ever had it, it's probably one of my favorite dishes. And that area has been effectively destroyed, totally destroyed by the earthquakes. So we elected not to come down, although I have heard it's quite safe. My fighter pilot buddy said that actually it's very safe in this area. We've been out to Diyarbakir, is just an amazing city. But this is Gobekli Tepe, and I have actually been here randomly when we did a tour when I was stationed here, just driving out to the east there to that town of Diyarbakir. We actually went to Gobekli Tepe. I was reading, what are we going to do tomorrow? And it just came up on, I think, TripAdvisor or something, if that even was then. This was in 2013, 2014. And I saw that it was from 12,500 years ago. So over 10,000 BC, 10,000 BC. You know, that monument I just showed you, the Midas monument, that's from 700 BC, but this is from 10,000 BC, which is just unbelievable. And you just walk up to it. You know, there's nobody there. There weren't any people there. There was this, you know, kind of structure here, but it was covered. I think it was covered. If I go back and look at my pictures, I might have to. There was no one. There was one other person there. That's it. There's no ticket counter. It hasn't been excavated, and it's a big hill. Okay, Gobekli. If they drink a lot of beer, right, then they have a Gobek. That's actually what it is. It is a little pot belly. So it literally means pot with a pot belly hill. So the top of the hill, has barely been excavated by, I believe it was, German engineers that came back like in the 80s. And they excavated the site, but there's so much underneath it. It's just a small part of the surrounding area here. If you look at this hill, if I can zoom out a little bit. Yeah, so this is just randomly at this top of this hill, but there are all these other sites, right? There's hills all around here, supposedly, and they have found other sites. And this is what Graham Hancock, I think it's his first episode of his series, where he's saying that there was a younger Dryas and from this Gobekli Tepe. So there is a museum. Hopefully we'll be able to get to a museum where they have an exhibit on Gobekli Tepe. And I'd like to talk to an expert about this, because supposedly these crazy, these are tall, like Stonehenge-like structures here. If you look how big the people are, right? So these are about triple overhead, if I'm thinking of surfing waves, height, and so these are large structures. And they pointed towards the Sirius star. I just talked to one of my Turkish fighter pilot buddies, asked him, what do they have what do you have in Turkey? And he mentioned this about Gobekli Tepe, the Sirius star, all pointing towards that. He also said that they have their own Loch Ness monster. Okay, so let me see if I can find this. Loch Ness monster is way out here. So, like I said, Turkey's the biggest country in Europe. So biggest country in Europe, very large, out in the east here. This is the border. This is Van Lake. They also have a city called Botman. I always wanted to go to Botman. This is the main city down in the southeast. This city is unbelievable. These walls are black, and they're like, 50 feet tall, and they surround the whole city. Just unbelievable town, man. If you want to go back to the ancient times, right here, they are living in ancient times. Like they're pounding out metal. Crazy town. But they have in Turkey their own Loch Ness monster, apparently. This is from Van Lake, and it's from mainly the 90s. They've had all these sightings of a creature. This is the Kurdish region. So basically, the argument is it's from an Armenian folklore, that they had a sea monster from Armenian folklore. But then if you look at Wikipedia, basically, they're saying that it's most likely from the Western culture, from the Loch Ness monster. But they have had pilots that have seen crazy UAP sightings. And I did on the beach. I talked to one guy. He was a character. He he said he's an F-16 pilot. I still need to check out his background, but he has an amazing UAP story where while flying an F-16, he said he saw a light essentially go in a 20-kilometer ring above his aircraft. 20 kilometers, he said, was the diameter of this thing, as fast as it could, and then it jetted away. He said he was scared, actually. He reported it. So that'll be interesting. Again, I have that on video as well, all in Turkish, so it'll take me a while to check that, make sure he's legit, he's a character, but that would be an amazing story. So that's basically in Turkey. That's what's going on in Turkey. Thanks, everybody, for being here. And so now let's start getting to your questions. Thanks so much already for the super chat. I'll just cover this while we can. So let's see. Chris, you asked me to send you my UFO encounter. Have you checked it out yet, frame by frame? It was only 1,000 to 2,000 feet above. I could see writing around the circumference of the fuselage. I would say not if it's that amazing of a sighting. But Danny's taking notes. So Danny's here, and we'll check it out. So thanks, Gary. We'll definitely check that out. Sorry, Bait, we haven't got to you. We get so many emails. I get so many emails and Twitter, Discord, etc. So yeah, I will get to it as best I can. And then let's show, let's see, how do I get to your super chat as well? Let's see. Thanks for that, Mirson. Let's see. Avi Loeb should drop a Galileo project rig with Chris Leto's direction for site placement. You know, I would like to work with Avi Loeb. I really like his recent expedition. I like how real time it was, and he's taken a lot of heat from his compatriots, right? So I appreciate what he does. I hope to work with him in the future. I would love it. Let's see here. Ted Mahler, in a short amount of time, Chris Leto's written to the top of ufology. I don't know about that. I commend him for that. Do you know if Bob Jacobs has or will testify to his amazing story of filming a UFO dismantle a dummy nuke rocket in flight? I hope so. And I heard Bob Jacobs would actually testify. And I also heard Solace would testify. Maybe they have already. So unknown. I really hope so. If you guys don't know about that, it's just an amazing story. Bob Jacobs basically was in charge in California, Vandenberg Air Force Base, of putting out a brand new technology telescope that would track one of their ICBM tests. And yeah, he says that the video was amazing of saucer actually flying into the frame. It's going, 8,000 miles per hour, and then deactivating with 4 laser beams on this ICBM. And he is backed up actually by another officer who unfortunately is now dead. And I believe even another officer. So Bob Jacobs, I mean, that's just an amazing story. Yeah. And that really, if we can figure out what happened to Bob Jacobs, that really would tell us a lot of information. If we knew the truth of Bob Jacobs' engagement and why that happened and what happened, I think we could answer a lot of the phenomena questions, because was it, if true, which it appears like it certainly could be, did the aliens, or were they taking out our ICBM? Or what I think it could possibly be, as crazy as it sounds, is an actual test, our own test, to see if we can take out ICBMs, i.e. from Russia. Could you use this as a secret weapon, essentially, which is the only thing I could think of to why they would keep it so secret. Let's answer this, and then I'll get to Patreon questions. What happened to Luis Elizondo? How come he didn't get called for the UAP hearings? Tim Burchett, he said he didn't want anyone from the government. He wanted the whistleblowers with firsthand knowledge. So I'm not sure. I think Lou just, he had been out there so much. He'd done so many presentations, had been online so much. You can get to where you're just over-publicized. I think that's kind of what happened to him. He got over-publicized, and maybe he felt like he was doing more harm than good, to where we need someone else, right? If you only have one source coming out, then it's only one source, right? So I think just new people out there is what they wanted. But his book's coming out. I'm very excited to see it. It should be out relatively soon, right? If anybody knows. Okay, so let's look at these. This is from the patrons. Thank you, guys. What is the seafloor like where the object was filmed? Any known anomalies? I would say not any known anomalies, just what I showed a few minutes ago, right? Let me bring this up again. You can see along the coast, it's just a very high traffic area. This is an ancient area. I'm sure for hundreds of thousands of years, you've had people here, like I just explained, all across this area, right? You have Gobekli Tepe 12,500 years ago. You have Derinkoyu, which I just showed, that underground city. Who knows how many thousands of years. You had Yazilikaya, that's the Midas throne that I showed you guys as well. And that has a huge cave structure around it. I mean, a huge, there's little monuments all littered around that place. There's just a treasure trove of information out here, treasure trove of archaeological finds that, we still have no idea. I mean, they just found Gobekli Tepe, right? And when I was looking at that, I couldn't believe that it was 10,000 BC, because that's earlier than anything I'd heard of, anything I learned in school. I love history. I loved reading about the Roman Empire. I've read a bunch of books on that. I lived in Turkey, obviously, for 3 years. I've read all about the Ottoman history, and that just blew everything away. I mean, the pyramids, imagine we're closer to the first pyramid in time than Gobekli Tepe is, which is just unbelievable. So I would say it's just an ancient place, but no known anomalies that I know of. Except you can see right here, there is some sort of undersea ocean floor, Sea of Marmara. Either way, interesting place. Okay, let's see. Any crash retrievals reported? I haven't heard anything about crash retrievals. I did see when I arrived, I was looking through the newspapers, and I did find there was a large explosion. I probably have it here still. Large explosion in Istanbul, and it was a green fireball. So green fireballs, what I've learned from meteor hunting, that's what we're aiming for, is actually tracking these meteors and tracking where they land to try and get debris field, to try and capture these meteors. I think it worked great over the water. And that's really what Avi Loeb did, right? He tracked IM2, Interstellar Meteor 2, to that location with some help from the Space Force, right? It was always good to get help from the Space Force. And they told him where the coordinates were, and he went to Papua New Guinea and dragged a magnet along with the ocean floor at 2 kilometers and brought back those spherules. And from what I've seen lately, I've been sharing it on X, is that these spherules are quite interesting. They have no nickel in them. And with no nickel, now that suggests that this is not a normal meteor. I think almost every meteor has some amount of nickel in it. So that would mean, could it be possible that this material was engineered? Basically, like where you have a weird isotope, you're actually going to engineer out the nickel. So green fireball in Turkey, and it turned with a large explosion. And so they believe in aliens. They've always talked about it, but I haven't heard anything about a crash retrieval. And I talked to asked the few fighter pilots I know, they hadn't heard of it as well. They've heard of cases where an F-16 pilot sees these lights, sees UFOs, reports it, etc., but nothing like Men in Black type stuff. I haven't heard that actually, which is interesting. Okay, we'll get next question here. Chris, you met David Fravor at the hearing? Yes. No, unfortunately, I did not. I was at the hearing, and I even have a little. We actually have some videos here I can show. I got this one here. I can play.
Thank you.
You heroes.
Yeah.
So I had that there. No, I didn't get to meet him actually. Unfortunately, he jetted right after, and so I was at the back. Unfortunately, if I had to do it over again, I would have fought my way up to the front. There were a few other people up at the front that didn't wait in line as long as us. But either way, no, I think he left quite quickly. I did get to meet David Grusch. I shook his hand. He seemed to know me. He said, "You're the Viper pilot," and I just wanted to thank him. And then he had other people coming up to him. And then I did get to also meet Ryan Graves. So I got to shake his hand. But again, they were so busy. That was basically, it was a very short encounter, unfortunately. All right. Thanks for everybody being here. This is live from Ankara. And it's so much stuff going on. It should be a fun show. I'm pretty excited about this show. Let's see. Let's get to a few more, and then we'll start taking from Audience, is there any scenario you can imagine you would agree that the US government should not be transparent in responding to Grusch's allegations? If so, what would be an example? And yes, so I would say the main example, right, is could it be so terrible? You know, the government finds out about this. They found out about it in the 40s, say, about these alien invaders, if you will, if that's the case. If they are trying to keep it secret so that they can ramp up their own program, like weapons program, to now gain our own sovereignty, you know, would that be a reason to hide it, to hide all this from the world, essentially? And I would say no. You know, I mean, because if you have an advanced civilization, right, and they're that much more advanced than us, right? They can bend space-time, they can come through dimensions. I just can't see a scenario where they wouldn't also know that our government knows, right? I mean, how could they not know? If they can come to our nuclear facility sites, they can just show up, they can shut down all our nuclear weapons, then obviously they have an overwhelming technological advantage. I mean, overwhelming, which means that they easily could have destroyed us or do whatever they want, essentially. So I'd be more inclined to say that no, there isn't really any reason that they shouldn't share it. So I'm inclined to think that they're keeping it secret because it benefits them, right? For power and control. They're scared to release it to the world, to give up their to save their own face, right? If they've been lying about this for 70 years, how can they be trusted? Or they've been compromised, meaning that they're not running the show, and that the NHI is actually running the show, and the NHI hasn't decided yet that we should know. I think those are probably your two most likely, or hopefully not likely, but that would make more sense to me. Let's see, what's the most profound experience or realization you've had during this trip to Turkey? I guess just talking to the imam was very memorable because I was an atheist, you know, and I actually remember living in Ankara, and they built this new mosque nearby, and we were worried about it because we could see it constructing, and because we didn't get a lot of call to prayers. It wasn't loud where we lived. It was a calm neighborhood, and as soon as they got the minaret up, I remember it was Christmas Day. And we had a young, my son was very young, and it just started blasting. I mean, louder than you can imagine. It was like they had a giant speaker right outside our bedroom door. It was amazing. It woke all of us up, and at I think it was like 4:30, 4:20 in the morning, right? We just had a newborn, and it was far away too. The mosque was over a kilometer away. It was surprisingly loud. So I went there, actually. I drove down there. And I talked to I went in there. It wasn't even constructed yet. Like, really, there was two people in there, the imam, and he's talking to this other guy. And I just went in there, and I basically showed him pictures of my family. I was like, hey, can you guys turn it down? Essentially, can you turn this down? And they didn't turn it down. He said he would, actually. He said he would turn it down. Man, next day it was just as loud. But coming back this time and talking to the imam, I guess I realized that I watch all these NDEs on TV or on YouTube now, and talking to the Muslims and the imam, they believe in the afterlife, and they believe in aliens, and they seem to believe in essentially the afterlife. And I guess just the profound experience is, I don't know, maybe I do now too. I've just been looking for evidence. Really, that's what I've been wanting to see, is evidence. And it looks like we can have, or we will have, evidence of something, some sort of surviving death. I just read Leslie Kane's book, Surviving Death, just a phenomenal book, amazing. And yeah, I guess that's the most profound experience, is it could be possible, and they believe that the aliens could be here. And just believing that it's possible, I think, is just it's been a shift, it's happened over the last 3 years. But I would say that's probably the most profound thing. Okay. last question here from the Discord. So thanks again to holders. If you guys do support UAP Society, then it says get a digital collectible. You will be a holder, and then you will forever be in the society until you have that thing, or you get banned for being ridiculous. But here we go. Hi, Chris. Have you heard about David Grusch being muzzled for a week? What are your thoughts on this? I did. I watched today. I watched Weaponized podcast. I thought it was a great podcast from Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp talking about how they met David Grusch, how he actually came up to that. I wish he would come up to me. I guess he doesn't go on a lot of overseas trips, but he came up to them and they pointed out, they asked George Knapp. He's obviously an experienced, amazing journalist for 35 years. He asked, is there anything in your background that could be an issue? And David Grusch named off a few things. And he said, there it is, right? PTSD or whatever sort of issues, what skeletons are in your closet? And George Knapp said they're going to use it, right? They're going to use that. And so they did use that, right? And it was, I think I even brought it up. Look at this guy. You're going to love this. Share this. Ken Klippenstein. And normally, trolls, they're like Voldemort, right? They just live for drama and trollery, right? But this dude especially lives for drama and trollery. He's like a professional troll, right? This is the dude that wrote the article on The Intercept. And initially, Ross Coulthart, he thought that it was a leak, right? And I think it was a leak. I think someone tipped this guy off that said, hey, you should look into Virginia FOIA requests, right? Because this guy, he calls himself, he's basically a FOIA nerd is what he's referred to himself as. There he is, a self-described FOIA nerd. Okay, so he's uncovered records requested at state and national levels of the U.S. government. So I didn't know this, but he can go and FOIA request the Virginia Sheriff's Office. He just happened to know, where David Grusch might have had an incident, right? So I think obviously someone, in my opinion, someone tipped him off to go and look in this area. And so he FOIA requests and released basically that whatever, he had some issues with PTSD, right, and alcohol use. And this is just so funny to me, right? Because not funny, it's just ridiculous that I'd say most of us have PTSD, especially in the military. As for in my medical records, I retired, I have PTSD listed, right? At night I have anxiety dreams and grind my teeth. Never went to mental health. I just gritted it out, like honestly, just gritted it because I did not trust those bastards. Essentially, I did not trust. I'm sorry, I don't. Every time I tried to ask, hey, is this going to be held against me, or do you guys document this? Will it affect my flying status? They could never give me a straight answer ever. And the reason is it does. It does affect you. And I think the whole reason, the medical mental health of the military right now, or at least in my career, I don't know if it's changed, is just based around keeping them protected, right? So they don't want a security incident. So if you're a threat, they want to make sure they can weed you out. And that's it. So if you have access to top secret material, your clearance, if you are PFP, so if you've on strike missions, nuclear weapons, etc., for understandable reasons, but that is their main goal. And I think that's why the whole program was created, is to find people who have mental health issues and then to remove them, right? So that they're not an issue. And then we'll worry about, helping them or fixing them. And then if they're fixed, then we'll bring them back on status, right? But you can see where this is going to go, that it's all centered around just making sure their system is good and that it's secure, right? And so that's not going to encourage us to go because it's going to affect our flying status. So what do? We all grit it. We all just grind it. I did talk to one person, and I'd probably recommend this to military now, is to just pay on your own on the side to get your own mental health, totally separate from the VA, from the military system. And then they can't, as far as I understand, they can't hold it against you. And now those people actually have to remain, you have some sort of patient confidentiality because it just can't be trusted because they can't. And they've proven that time and again. And so all of us have PTSD, right? It's like, and alcohol. Alcohol is a huge, if you've been in the military, if anyone's been in the Air Force, alcohol is a huge part of the culture. It's a huge part of military culture, huge. and the Air Force, at least. I'm sure the other branches. I mean, you get to South Korea, you go on your green bean, they call it, when you show up, and you actually go around to different bars, juicy bars, of different alcoholic drinks. You know, and there's like a giant, it's called an ammo bowl. It's like this big giant bowl of suju, and everybody has to drink it as fast as they can. And then you go to the next bar. I mean, right now, as we're talking, in fighter bars, more than a few, people are having to take shots. They're having to take shots because they did something stupid, or they're calling someone else out, or they upgraded, they became, anything. There's a bar in your fighter squadrons, and that's where people go every Friday. You have to go. It's part of the job. You can't just skip these and take shots, right? Literally. I mean, you can elect for a non-alcoholic drink, but I'd say most people take shots. It's part of the culture. You go to Korea, you come back an alcoholic. And this is how it is. I don't, and it's not like they're fixing it, right? Again, from what I've seen, it hasn't been fixed. So I don't know. I mean, it's basically like it's learned. It's just the fact that it leaked, right? First off, Grusch is a big boy, right? He's been to Afghanistan. He's been shot at. He's had friends die. I mean, no one wants your family hassled like this, surely. But I think he'll survive by some, literal douchebag releasing his information. And I say that I'm quoting actually Elon Musk, who called this guy a douche. Let's look at this. Online pranks, because this is what Ken Klippenstein or whatever is known for, is online pranks, right? He's a history of pranking unknown targets on Twitter. And this is actually Musk. So in 2014, Vanity Fair, Oscars after party, I guess Musk and Ghislaine Maxwell, a longtime associate of Jeffrey Epstein, whatever, Musk was talking to her, and this, I guess, some photo came out, and so this guy Klippenstein shared it, and so this is from Musk. He says, "Yeah, he's a douche about town, and he's a literally douche about town." 2019. Let's see. This is what he did. So he basically he gets people on X, Twitter, to share a tweet, and then he changes his name. So then it looks like they're promoting something. So he gets this guy, Steve King, just before, let's see, Clemenstein was covered in the media after a Twitter incident in which he was retweeted by Iowa Congressman Steve King just before changing his Twitter display name to Steve King as a white supremacist, right? So he gets him to tweet, and then he changes it. So he makes that guy look dumb. In March 2021, he pranked Naomi Wolf by recommending she tweet an image of a fabricated anti-vaxxer. And then this is the worst, right? And from people I've covered lately, on Memorial Day, 2021, okay, on Memorial Day, you guys are going to hate this guy, man. Klebenstein tricked political commentators Dinesh Souza and Matt Schlapp, as well as Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz. Okay, so I did cover Gaetz. He was awesome in the last hearing. But he basically tricks Matt Gaetz on Memorial Day, right, from retweeting a photograph of Lee Harvey Oswald, right? Lee Harvey Oswald has shown up, if you didn't know, in the JFK files that are supposed to be released. They were supposed to all be released in 2017. They were not. They still haven't been released. But in the ones that were released, guess whose name is all over the records that the CIA denied for, I don't know, however many decades? Lee Harvey Oswald, right? So he shows up as a legit, like, his name's all over the files, right? Before the assassination. So he obviously was an agent. He worked for the CIA. His mom said he's an agent, and of course, comes out he is released here. So what did Klippen Douche do? He basically got Matt Gaetz to share on Memorial Day a picture of his claimed veteran grandfather, Lee Harvey Oswald, right? And then as soon as Matt Gaetz shares it, then he changes his display name to Matt Gaetz is a pedo. That's what he shares. I mean, this is the quality of our journalists these days, supposed journalists. And he's still working there. It was a trick, actually, when he said on Twitter, maybe you've heard that he was let go, right? But that's not true, because he tweeted out, the Intercept let me go, right? And then the next tweet he says, and check out some things. It was basically, or take photographs on a trip. So they didn't let him go. He just tricked the News Nation people. So yeah, quality right there. And I guess what I think about that is, I mean, it sucks, but like I said, Dave Grusch is a tough guy. He went to Afghanistan. I think he can take this, and it's actually more important, I think, that he talks about, and he can help veterans out there that may be in the same situation to say that you can get through it. I think that's a better thing that he actually talks about it. And so the way it came out is terrible, but it doesn't discount anything in my mind. If anything, it makes the FOIA process look terrible, because how is his identity? And they redacted it. If you look at actually the email train on that crappy intercept on the article, it's all redacted, right? So they redacted his name, right? But they left his address. They left everything else. It's just like when I was on the East Coast for the gimbal incidents, when you're looking at the range Fowler reports, you know, the idea is they're supposed to keep, secret. Again, I don't see how the shape of these things are secret. It's ridiculous. They're supposed to keep that secret, but then you're also supposed to keep the actual people secret. And they did a terrible job. They really did. So they're not releasing information to us. And when they do release the information, they're giving away what they should be keeping secret, is the actual identity of the people. And so it just highlights how crappy the mental health system is. The VA process sucks. I'm going through it right now. It's just a mind blow. And they keep asking you every time you talk. You know, I'm on hold for 30 minutes every time, and they're like, "Are you thinking about killing yourself?" call this. I actually called the hotline last week because I was on hold for so long. I called them just to tell them I honestly am thinking about killing. I wasn't before, but you keep telling me, am I thinking about killing myself? I had no problems before I talked to you guys. And they're going to hold that against me. But no, I don't drink, haven't drank for 15 years. Again, I was an alcoholic from the Air Force. Okay. The Air Force did not help. It just pushes it. And I'd say most people in the Air Force are working alcoholics. So yeah, I'm glad he got over that. Good job to David Grusch. All right. That was a long rant on that. Let's go through more of your questions. What do we got? All right. Tons. Oh, geez. All right. Faster, funnier. This isn't showing. There we go. Thanks, Wow. My favorite video, the Turkey UFO, man. It's amazing. That's why I covered it. Thank you so much, guys, for the support. It really does help. Again, I don't take any sponsorships. You know, when I see other YouTubers, Russell Brand giving sponsorships, advertising, not me, man. They just look like, I'm going to say it. Hey, brother, my question is, how come if we have UFOs technology, the gap between F-35 and this thing's technology is so big? I think a huge thing you're going to realize, or I realize, is reverse engineering. It's not so easy, right? How would you reverse engineer a antimatter reactor, for instance? How are you going to reverse engineer an isotopic material that we can't even identify? You know, how are you going to create it? Like if I brought you right now, if I gave you an iPhone and was like, re-engineer this, you personally, you know, that's basically kind of the level we're at, you know. So I think re-engineering is probably going to be your most difficult thing. But where does it help? I mean, the F-35 is an amazing machine. It really is. Initially, I was skeptical of the F-35, but I've worked with it. I fought against them. I've fought with them. Directed them in exercises, and that thing is an ass kicker, man. Anyone who talks trash about the F-35 doesn't know what the F-35 can do. And so I would say it's pretty advanced if you look at it. The technology is amazing. The material science technology is probably where we gain the most. The material science technology, and then maybe understanding what could be possible by seeing it. All right. Let's see. Thanks, Lamp. Thank you for the super chat. Heavy Loeb should drop a Galileo project. That's what we talked about that. Awesome. Okay. All right. So we covered those we missed. What happened to Luis Elizondo? We covered that. I hope to see him. We should hear his book. All right. Thank you as well. Okay. Yeah, I've seen this question come up. And what do you think about this MH370 story? Well, let's go through it. I have the video up here. And I think it's an amazing video. Let's check it out and see what I can. is it here? Okay. Okay, so could it, and it, you know, what's crazy, and I honestly, I can't imagine it would be MH370. I mean, you were talking about we'd have two systems, right? What I'm going to show you here, there's two videos. Essentially, this is the IR video, which I think is very interesting. The IR video is amazing. And the other overhead video, you know, I've never seen an overhead video like that before. So I can't really speak to it. I have some idea where it could possibly come from. But just the idea that we would have two systems watching this thing, how could that be MH370? I just doesn't make any sense to me. But it does make sense if it was real, if this is real, as a test, right? Because if you have a test, then you would have these systems watching. Okay, so let's watch this first video. And this is infrared. I'll just play through, but you'll see this, right? This is I think this is a Predator wing. If you look, it's got this funny jink here, which is really just like a Predator. It has that weird forward nose. And so for me, it seemed like, yeah, it seems like MQ1. And I've also seen as well that they show that online. They'll have on the wing is an IR optical ball. I didn't bring it up, but let's watch this video here. And this right here, okay, so this is very interesting because this is exactly what it looks like when you fly under contrails. Okay, so these are going to be your contrails, which there's a contrail layer is going to be at a certain cold temperature. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, but every day we go out to fly. If you're fighting, right, as soon as you con, it's called marking. Everyone and their brother can see you, right, from 50 miles away. You can see an aircraft conning. And so what'll happen is it doesn't make any sound. So people will be flying in exercises. And if I'm flying with my wingman, if I start conning, you're supposed to say on the radio, marking, etc. Because everyone will look at you. This also works amazingly well for decoys. So if you want to decoys, if you're working, I worked as an aggressor, red air aggressor, then you put an aircraft into the cons and you fly them around because, man, everybody can see it. It's just like this huge red flag decoy. And they'll brief it. It's usually like a band of 5 to 10,000 feet. And it's where the water and the fuel will actually turn to ice. So it must be right at the freezing point, if that's where it is. But in Alaska, I remember we'd actually con on the ground as we're taxiing. I remember we actually had to taxi slower. It was so cold that we were conning on the ground as we're taxiing around. So long story short, these cons look like real cons, meaning I don't know how they would fake this, is my point. This specific section here. So you see that the cons there. What's weird about this is there's no indication. You know, all of the screens I've ever used will have something around it, you know? We'll have some sort of numbers or, you know, there'd be some telling the operator how it works. But again, I don't know how Predators actually work. You know, I'd be really interested if there's any Predator pilots watching this. Does this look like a real Predator feed? You know, could this actually be legit, some sort of test? So what we see here is, yeah, here's your airplane, and I tried overlaying a 777. It looks like, as far as I can tell, a 777 to me. I couldn't really tell. I was trying to tell by the angle of the tail, but twin engine, large aircraft. I was thinking KC-10 initially, you know, like a tanker aircraft, but we'd probably see something underneath here. But infrared, so this is color infrared. We only had black and white, but it looks like an IR image to me. So now what you see here is these orb things, right, come around. And this video was on 2014. Yeah, I mean, this video is just crazy, right? So if you see here, it even looks like there's actually trailing through the atmosphere cold, right? So it'll be red hot, and then, and we try with Puerto Rico UAP is to actually get the temperature. You have to know the actual systems because it's just going to be an altitude delta. I'm sorry, altitude delta, temperature delta. So obviously your engines are going to put out, they're going to be hottest here. And this looks correct to me as well, where you actually could have gas, this is where your hot gas is going to be as well. And now we show these orbs flying around. This video was very interesting to me, as I would just say that. In 2014, I don't know how you would fake it. Obviously, it must be fakeable, but I don't know how you would do it. Yeah. And that would match basically what they're seeing, your cube inside of a sphere, 5 to 15 feet. If you look at the size here of these engines, I mean, you've seen engines out on a 777, they're pretty big, but this looks about 15 feet across. Yeah, amazing stuff. Back in 2014. Okay, and then it just disappears, right? Just unbelievable. And I've slowed this down. If you actually look, what'll happen is that the three balls will actually come closer, and then if I can frame it forward. Let's see. Okay, yeah, see, they come close, and now it forms like this triangle, and then poof, right? I mean, if that's a fake, they're very creative, they're very clever. It's just amazing. So I thought it's very interesting. I've watched it quite a bit. I'm not a Predator pilot. I haven't used this. I haven't seen this type of IR actual system, but I would say it looks like a medium wave IR. It looks like military grade. And then that disappear, right? Unbelievable. There's another video here. I don't think they have it. Let me see. No, he just zooms in. But the other one is the overhead video. And hopefully you guys have seen that one as well. I didn't have it in here, but I did want to bring up one point. There's an overhead video that proclaims to show this happening from an overhead view, which again, it only makes sense to me if it's a test, because it would be planned. Because why would this Predator happen to be a mile and a half? I would say that's about 2 mile range, right? 2 to 3 miles. Yeah, 2 to 3 mile range. And Predators fly slow. Predators are not fast airplanes. Okay, maybe they've increased the speed, but MQ-1 I don't think is that fast. So why would a Predator just happen to be there and happen to see this? So it's either a video that they took for practice, and then someone added these crazy orbs and this crazy effect, which is pretty amazing to me, or miraculously somehow it's legitimate. The one point I wanted to bring up was, I don't know, the overhead view. People keep saying it's a satellite, that it's your NROL 22, right? But I think it could more likely be, or would make sense as a possible option, is this thing, your RQ-4 Global Hawk. And I know a lot of people don't really know about these things. I'll explain it here, but your Global Hawk is this is an amazing machine. Okay, this is a drone. Northrop Grumman RQ-4 Global Hawk is a high altitude, okay, up to 60,000 feet. 60,000 feet that we know about, right? Let's look at this thing. Remotely piloted drone. Okay, it has both synthetic aperture radar. Okay, that's radar that basically scans the ground, and electro-optical infrared. So electro-optical is what the overhead view is, right? It's visual. Electro-optical. It has long loiter times over target areas, and it can survey as much as 40,000 square miles per day. So that's an area the size of South Korea or Iceland. Okay, so that is a big area. And high altitude means really high altitude. Let's see if we can get the service ceiling in here. But there's not that many of them, but there is a Navy version. So the Navy has developed the Global Hawk MQ-4C Triton. So they've developed this thing. And this thing is big, man. This thing is giant. This is not like your normal Predator. The cost, look at this again, my last on the money. $10 million is what they said this is what it'll cost in 94. Okay, by 2001, it was 60 million. Oh, and then in 2013, 131 million per. 131 million per, right? So it went from $10 million to 131. Look at that. I mean, the defense contract spending is just ridiculous, just out of control. Okay, but they are going to retire them in 2027. But you got to see some pictures on this thing, just to see how big this beast is, man. Look at this thing. Yeah, I mean, that is a big drone. I mean, that's bigger than an F-16 by a lot. And the wingspan is huge. Let's see if we can get another one. Apparently, the Germans have one. The wingspan, look at that. So there's a guy there, right? And this thing is big. I mean, the wingspan, we'll have to, hopefully we can find it. But the point is that thing could have possibly, again, I've never seen one of these videos as well, but could have gotten that video instead of a satellite. So let me, how do I get, you're locking me out. All right, it's just locking on here. Go back. Okay, there we go. Let me see if I can just get a altitude ceiling on this. Sensor packages. Okay, so it has radar, visible light, infrared. So it does have visible and infrared. And I wonder, could that have even been the front? I don't think so. I think it was a Predator. Telescoping close-up ability. It can be optionally fitted with a SIGINT. And then if we go to your service ceiling characteristics, there we go. So the length is 47 feet, but look at the wingspan. I knew it, man. It's ridiculous. 130 feet. 130 feet. Wow, that is amazing. Length is 47 feet. And it's only 3,000 pounds or capacity. Gross weight's about the same as an F-16, right? But it can fly much, much higher. Service ceiling, 60,000 feet. Okay, so it flies way up high, and it has a huge, wide area. So that, you know, if true, if possible, to me, it seems like, why would you have a Global Hawk there recording this and a Predator? And to me, it sounds like a test, meaning, yeah, a U.S. test of some crazy new system. I don't know. But yeah, I haven't looked much. It seems kind of crazy that would be MH370. But that's basically my coverage on that. Wow, 1,200 people. Thank you, everybody, for being here. If you're just arriving, yeah, we're just covering, this is the MH370 story. A lot of people said it's a satellite overhead view, and just what I thought is, to give another option is, you could have this. Basically, that could be a real-time video, if possible, from one of these systems, way up high, and a Predator. So you're covering your test, you know, whatever it is they're videoing here from those two drones. All right. Let's get back. Next questions. Thanks again for being here. Let's see. Thanks, Greg Sledge. Thank you so much, guys, for all your support. Again, I don't take sponsors. It's just from you guys. So if I'm delivering the content, hopefully you're enjoying it. Have you looked into cattle mutilations? And if so, what are your thoughts on it? This channel is what the UFO community need. Awesome. I just watched Bigelow's, he did an interview on Jeffrey Mishlove. Now, I love Jeffrey Mishlove's channel. I watch that from time to time. And if you haven't checked out Bigelow's interview, it's interesting. He talks quite a bit about cattle mutilations. It's only a 30-minute interview. I think they're amazing, right? I don't know that much about them. I've just looked into it. I've talked to actually Mario Woods. If you remember, if you go back to my interview with Mario Woods, he's come across on his own 2 actual cattle mutilations. And the weirdest part is there's no blood. You know, where does the blood go? And when I was here in Turkey, actually, I went to one of the sacrifices. You go out in this random place out in the hills, and they have all these bulls. And they do it every year for Ramadan. And man, they slit that bull's throat, and there is a lot of blood inside of a bull. There really is. I almost fell over, man. I've seen all this blood, such a wuss. But there's a ton of blood, and that's probably the most interesting part for me is how can you have a cow that's been, cut up, mutilated, if you will, and yet there is no blood, man. That is just so strange to me. So I would love to see more investigation into it, to be honest. Yeah, those are my thoughts. All right. Thanks, everybody. We got you, Greg Sledge. All right. So what are your questions? Let's see. MH370 story. Hopefully I covered that. When am I going back to Mount Wilson or Skinwalker? I've never been to Skinwalker Ranch. I did go to the Vernal Valley. I've been keeping up with Carl the Crusher Carl Vibe. He's been pumping out Mount Wilson videos, and there is a documentary coming, from what I understand, on Mount Wilson. So hopefully in the fall or winter, I'll be able to get back there and do some on-the-ground investigations. New Zealand, awesome. Sweden, the Chris Bledsoe story. Okay. Yeah, the Five Eyes, right? So sketchy, the Five Eyes. Let's see what we have. I'll come up to real time. Sorry, guys. I am live from Turkey. This is live, so ask your questions. Let me get, I just finished up answering the super chats that I saw. Thank you guys so much for the support. I covered all your patron questions. Thanks for being patrons and YouTube members. Do we have any YouTube members in here that I can hopefully see? Six Eyes. I haven't. I saw it come up on my feed, and I just couldn't bring myself to watch it on the F-18 pilot with Mick West. Is it worth watching? I'll wait for that. Yes, that's right. The Peru. Let's see. Where's the question on the Peru Aliens? Let's see what I have on that. I found. It's been a crazy week, right? Well, this job is. I do appreciate it. I really like the different material. But here we go. This is from Peru. Let me remove this comment. And it was just so outlandish, the story, that I was, I've been following it, but I'm hesitant to share it, only because it just seemed it was on the other side of the world. I'm in Turkey. I'm worried about this area and the US, so I've been focused on that. But people kept asking me about this Peru Aliens. And if you've seen the video, it's basically the chief near Quito in Peru. And basically the indigenous chief said he shot these aliens, 7-foot tall aliens that can float or fly. And it got up and left, right? So what's come out of that is, according to this from New York Post, is that the prosecutor accuses illegal gold mining gangs of posing as 7-foot aliens to terrorize locals with jetpacks. And so I don't know. I guess the drug cartels supposedly have been using jetpacks to look around, to prospect for gold in the area. But jetpacks, that was very interesting to me. A jetpack is, I've never seen one in person, but jet engines are extremely, extremely loud. I mean, amazingly loud. And would you be using a jetpack in the forest? Because at least normal any jet engine I've used is very susceptible to FOD, foreign object debris. So anything that gets into that engine is going to FOD it out. It's going to destroy it. So are they really just flying around in the jungle on these jetpacks? And the indigenous people, they can't hear the whine of this jet engine. I mean, you would hear that thing from a mile away. So it just seems crazy to me. But let's see what they see in this. I read this a while ago. But say locals in Altai Nanai, a hamlet around 3,000 people in northern Amazon basin, reported seeing armored and floating 7-foot aliens wearing dark-colored hoods flying around since mid-July. Some claim the creatures were impervious to bullets. So dark-colored hoods, could that be a helmet or something? How do they not hear a giant jet engine? But again, these are indigenous tribes. Yeah, unknown. But they say many speculated it was the face peelers. So that's what they call it, the local superstition or green goblins, effectively. Prosecutors believe that it's like Scooby-Doo, essentially, that the gangs, they're hoping to invoke fear in the locals, keep them inside their homes. I did see an interview with a woman, and she said it was a white light following her around. And that doesn't sound like a man in a jetpack, but could it be a drone, right? Are these indigenous people, do they maybe not know about this technology? Yeah, that would be, they would be using state-of-the-art technology such as thrusters that allow people to fly. I mean, it's possible, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. So I'm watching it. Either way, it's a crazy story. However you cut it, this whole thing's a crazy story. So I hope that they investigate it more and actually find out. And this just isn't the end of it. I would hope to see jetpacks that can explain it, or drones that could, it could be a white light following these locals home. That makes more sense to me than a flying jetpack. The other thing is they shot him, right? According to the indigenous leader, he shot the creature or whatever, and then it got up and left. But maybe it was he's shot and running away. He didn't expect them to have guns. So yeah, crazy story. I don't know. I haven't made a video about it or anything. I don't know what else I would add to that. I mean, it's the Scooby-Doo meets UAPs meets the new jetpack systems. I've seen those. They have the jetpack on the back, and then you have the jet engines in your hands. But still, I think floating, maybe they use some other technology. Let's talk about this. Any updates on Sky 360? So I'm not sure. I talked to Leonel last, and basically it sounds like they're still hung up on just getting the developers free enough time to actually finish the final software and hardware design. So we're actually pushing forward with our own, UAP Society. And in this point now we're moving, if you come to the UAP Discord, is to make our own systems, some sort of system. If it's just using whatever they have now with Sky 360, then we'll just use that, and not waiting for the finished AI product, because it just hasn't been done. And we've been waiting a year and a half. So I think we're going to move forward and just try and get our own systems out, whatever that can be, to actually monitor the sky in Hessdalen, hopefully in my area, and then in Texas. We have people in UAP Society as well as Mount Wilson. It's a lot of snow in Mount Wilson, has issues, but that's the goal. So no, I haven't heard great updates. Hopefully it's coming out in the fall, but they've been saying that for so long that Sky 360, I don't know, I'm getting concerned. So I think we should just make our own, some sort of camera system that can get out there into these UFO hotspots, primarily Hessdalen for now, Mount Wilson, and then I would love it near by myself back in Lagos. UFO depth, right? There are systems. So there are systems that can do it. So yeah, what do you guys think we should put out? Because I've been waiting a long time for Sky 360. I think in the end, it's going to be the best system. And we have a plan to actually, through UAP Society, try and motivate people to actually uptime these things through token management, etc. But until the system's ready, we're just kind of sitting on our thumb. So I'd like to actually do something. Let's see, do I know anything about Phil Schneider? No, and the Dulce base incident. I do not. All right, hello from Chicago. Yeah, if you're just arriving here, so we've covered quite a few things. Covered the Turkey trip, where I'm at now. We covered the MH370 a little bit. Basically, I think the IR video is quite compelling, actually. And the overhead video, I think, should be looked into at least, a global hawk. We talked about the Peru miners with jetpacks and they're bulletproof. Let's see what other questions you guys have. Let's see. Curious about why NASA Tim Taylor, Army Colonel John B. Alexander are closely interested related to Chris Bledsoe's story. Could he be the subject of non-lethal weapons testing? That's been, it's very interesting with the Havana syndrome. You have Havana syndrome. You have Kit Green, who had Chris Bartell's medical records. And one of those medical records, Chris Bartell, he worked at Skinwalker Ranch for over 7 years, I believe. He was out there often alone. And Kit Green asked for his medical records. And the next time Chris Bartell saw them was on TV when Gary Nolan was explaining, I believe it was on, I think he was talking to Tucker Carlson actually, or about Havana syndrome. And he showed up, actually Chris Bartell recognized his number from showing on TV. So could it be related to some sort of non-lethal weapons testing? Is that the argument? Is like some sort of crazy radiation system it's affecting our diplomats? That's all I can think of is how I can add to that. From Spain, awesome. I love Spain. Thank you guys. The satellite videos. Yeah, what I said is I thought maybe it was a global hawk, actually. I just haven't satellite. I've seen a lot, thousands and thousands of satellite photos, right? But I've never once seen a satellite video, not ever. So they're so secret, so top secret. I have no idea what a satellite video even looks like. Can you just drag along? Can you get sort of that resolution from a wide camera? The other question is why are they tracking this plane? And how could you possibly get two systems of that caliber looking at this thing? Predators are not fast. MQ-1. Let me just bring up an MQ-1. MQ-1 Predators, I think they have gotten faster, but man, we used to make fun of them for being very slow. I guess, could it be a Reaper? Reaper's MQ-9, those are quite a bit faster, but it's still just a push. It's a push tail. Predators and Reapers, they have essentially a Cessna engine. You have a Cessna engine pushing this thing, which makes it highly efficient. It can stay up there for 12 hours at a time, sips gas, essentially. But let me find this for you guys, and then I'll bring it up. But the Predators are just super slow. Let's see, did that work? I'm going to bring it up for you guys. Okay, so this is actually a Predator, and I think this looks like what took the IR video. If you see that funny nose right there, and if I can bring it back to here, you'll see right at the beginning, you'll see that funny kind of nose. All right, it's got that. And if you see a Predator, I've seen them, they taxi around, and they'll flash you with their lights to let you know that they're talking to you, basically. But this Predator, switch back to this. These things are just super slow, right? So if you look at this thing, what's your speed? Sorry, it's in Turkish. There we go. Okay. All right. And you see these hard points, right? So you can mount, instead of a weapon, you can now mount another IR camera. And so I think that's what we're seeing is it's on the right side over here. And you're seeing that kind of weird sloping nose thing right there. Okay, so if we go back to this video, right, that's your weird kind of sloping nose. And I slowed it down now. It's in 0.25 speed. But why would you have this system there, a Predator, which flies, this looks like around 20,000 feet. And based on the contrails, it's probably up in the 20s, right? Unless it's a freezing cold area, but my guess is it's, I'm not seeing ice in the water. So it's probably in the 20s. So a Predator, to get there, to get to this position is not so easy. This plane was probably orbiting. So if we go back to the Predator, let's see if we can find out how fast this thing goes. with its push. It's got a little push tail rotor, right? Yeah, it carries Hellfires. When I showed up in Balad, they had this 18-year-old airman woman had just, with that missile, killed 3 people that were bombing the base. MQ-1B. So I think this is what I saw on Reddit. Yeah, these are capable of carrying ordnance, modified antenna fit. Let's see if we can see how fast they go. Here we go. So, the wingspan is 48 feet. If you remember that Global Hawk, 3 times that, 140 feet, man. It's just giant. But the speed, if you guys see the speed on this thing, look at that. Max speed, 135 miles per hour. That is the maximum speed, max. So if there's a wind, that's what I've been talking about, these high winds. Keep saying on the East Coast. And Ryan Graves said it. He said it in the hearing. He said hurricane speed winds. Okay, this thing is not going to go into the hurricane speed wind. Okay, it's going to sit in the same position or go backwards because, again, this is max speed. And at 25,000 feet, it's going to be going slower because although jet engines get more effective, the air is very thin as you get higher. So that little push prop is going to be kind of useless. Service ceiling. Okay, so it probably not above 25,000 feet. So it's 20,000 feet. So how did this Predator get into position to see this plane? Right, a jet, even a 777 is going to be flying at 0.8 Mach. Okay, they don't use Mach numbers because it is too slow. Okay, you don't use Mach numbers if your max speed is the speed of a helicopter. So that's probably the weirdest thing for me is how can you get those 2 systems there seeing it? And I don't know about satellites, but it could be a Global Hawk. Or I would ask any Global Hawk pilots out there, is that a video of a Global Hawk? Because I haven't seen it. What's this? Off topic. Yeah, I think I would love to see our government focus more on better relations, not pushing war with everyone. I would love to see that. We'll put that up there. You guys can read about the Predator. Okay, this is the thing. Thanks for bringing this up. I've been on jungle expedition in the Amazon. Native Indians have serious culture and experiences on these events. I truly felt this being in the middle of the Amazon. Let's see, are all aliens extraterrestrial? Well, that was the question for David Grusch. And he said, I don't think we can say that. It seems like they're saying it's all interdimensional. No, I didn't actually see Brandon Fugal on Sean Ryan's show. I haven't watched it. Skinwalker Ranch, it's like so big. There's so much for Skinwalker Ranch that dipping into it, you're going to spend like a month. I haven't followed Skinwalker Ranch. I didn't. So I guess I should. Let's see. You guys, I was there live. Brian loved the interview, but Sean needs mods. Mods. I met him actually, Sean. He was in line behind me. He was a nice guy, actually. Recognized him, got a picture with him. Yeah, it was interesting. Did Brandon Fugal buy Skinwalker Ranch from Bigelow? I believe he did. And Bigelow, yeah, like I said, that interview is interesting. He talks about the ranch. He talked about his experiences on the ranch with Jeffrey Mishlove, and he talked about cattle mutilations. Interesting stuff. All right, let me try and get to current. Did I miss any chats? Let's see. Chris, have you looked into post-World War II Swedish multiple lake UFOs? Many cases military involved. Yes, I did. I interviewed the top researcher from Sweden. So check that out. It's part of my Heston series, number 4. And yeah, there's thousands of them. Very interesting. Those are ghost rockets. And also what's interesting about the ghost rocket is the description matches what Ross Coulthart brought up about a supposed craft that the U.S. has. I don't know exactly where he mentioned it. It was one of the podcasts he's done after the hearings. But basically, it's a seamless craft that has no windows, etc., and it's about the size of a car. And that's the description of many of these ghost rockets that we heard. There was thousands of these, and they entered into these lakes. And initially, they thought they'd be V2 rockets, so they picked them up on radar. They saw them visually, and a lot of people saw them actually just fly with sound, right? With sound, which is interesting to me. On the lake, sometimes they just float on the lake for a while and then sink. And then when they would go and try and retrieve these things, there was just an impression in the bottom of the lake where they thought it was. And that's a crazy story because Hap Arnold went there as well, I believe. Shortly after, he was in charge of Exxon, I think. He was in charge of a oil company, or high up in an oil company, and he actually went to Sweden shortly after one of these sightings. So yeah, it's quite interesting. Very interesting. Thanks for asking that. And check out that Heston series, the last one in the Heston. Sorry, I can't remember his name. Any thoughts on those recent shoot downs a few months back? Do you find it weird we haven't followed up? Based on what they were, I think they were balloons. That's what I think. I think, when you have all the other cases, there's a famous case I did a video on, I believe in the 50s, where you had an Air Force pilot who was ordered to launch out of southeastern UK. So he was ordered to launch and shoot at a large UFO in the clouds. He never saw it, but he did lock it on his radar, and he was going to launch his rockets, 24 rockets, I think, at this thing. And right before he's going to push, he gets a weapon solution. He's actually holding the trigger down. Before he's going to get to a weapon solution, seconds before the UFO takes off. So just being able to shoot these things down with like kinetic weapons just doesn't seem possible to me. I don't know, based on everything else I saw. If you talk about or look at the Foo Fighters from World War II, Graham Randall has written quite a few books on it. They would just shoot machine guns into this thing, into the lights, and nothing would happen. So I don't know. I just imagine that if we are taking these down, David Grusch said there are techniques. I think the techniques revolve around like nuclear weapons. Maybe that's why we did so many nuclear detonations, or crazy radar, electromagnetic interference, crazy magnetic interference. I don't think you're going to be able to throw a fast rock at these things. I just don't. So that's why. And it sounded like they were shooting down balloons. Oh, awesome. Yes, keep the Discord posted. You're going to Heston, and that's so cool. That's great. Yeah, I hope to go there as well. Where do you think we'll be in 12 months? That's amazing. Yeah, that's a great question. I would love to I'm just thinking a few months ahead. I would love to see Senate hearings, legit Senate hearings, maybe with people that don't want to be there. That would be nice. Get some hostile hearings. David Grusch mentioned he has a hostile list and a non-hostile list. It'd be sweet to get both those people up there. Get some hostile witnesses. Do you think Mario Woods could testify for Congress? I would be amazed if they invite him. I mean, knowing what he's going to say, just can't believe it. I think he's talked to Arrow for sure, which, as Jeremy Corbell said, is useless. He's not going to send anyone else to Arrow, which is just amazingly unfortunate. All right, how long we've been going? Hour and a half. Okay, we'll go ahead and wrap this up in a few minutes. Thanks for being here, everybody. If you want to get your questions in, thanks again for the support. Appreciate it. Eric Bard, physicist at Skinwalker, asked for a sign, and his screen morphed and said, "I living." Okay. That's amazing. I have heard Skinwalker Ranch has all the data we'll need. Yeah, but I mean, so many people cover it. It's on a TV show. I just haven't. It's It's like that giant book, I just haven't opened. Plus, I mean, I hate to say it, but I just the delivery, the delivery of watching the TV show. I'd rather have just hardcore data or less sitting around and talking. I don't know. Just I should check it out, I guess, if everybody's saying. Yeah, thanks, Gozu Metal. Let's see if I tracked everything else. Yeah, fake Patrick. They do look pretty weak right now, right? Do you expect a lot to happen, UAP disclosure, leading up to the election? I will tell you guys, I just watched an amazing interview. I never thought I'd see a politician talk like that. But RFK, if you watch his interview with Tucker Carlson, first, I think it's amazing. He can talk intelligently about history. He's an environmental lawyer. But what's quite interesting about that, just to try and not dive into politics, is that he talks about his why he thinks his uncle was killed, why he thinks JFK was killed. And he's searched, I think he's investigated more than most, right? And his honest thinking is that it is the CIA, right? And we saw with the Oswald's been all over the JFK file released, but they still haven't released all of the files, right? And Tucker Carlson asks him in that interview, he says, why do you think they haven't released the rest of the files, right? Because we basically know the CIA had a hand to play, if not totally guilty. And they couldn't come up with an answer. But RFK, what he said is I think it's not to protect people, it's to protect institution. So it's to protect the institution. So what could be so bad that you're going to protect the institution, right? So basically, it's shown that Oswald was definitely hired by the CIA, and he did shoot him. So the CIA's red-handed linked to killing of the president, right? What could be worse than that, or what could be worse than protecting that? A conspiracy killing the president, if it's killing the president to protect the UFO secret, right? I mean, that they couldn't come up with anything the whole time. Like, it could be the UFO secret, right? It could be, and I guess I get a lot of crap for saying that conspiracy theory, right? But it was a conspiracy that was proven, and they haven't released it because there's something so bad hidden underneath, or something that they don't want to release, that is protecting the institution. So that's what I thought. I would check out that interview. You can go maybe search for that section. It's quite interesting. Let's see. The whole reason disclosure is where it's at because of Skinwalker Ranch and James Lakatsky seeing the vision in the kitchen. I don't think so. I think we're here because of Harry Reid, Christopher Mellon really pushing it. I'm sure we've added more, but I think it'd still just be a fringe topic if you didn't have that UAP hearing, literally. That really pushed it, because I live overseas, and before that, people didn't know anything about it, right? I would say it would come up, I meet people, I'm friends with them. What do you do? I investigate aliens or UAPs, essentially. And I would have to explain it to them. After the hearing, now people know, they're at least a percentage of the people know, not everybody, obviously, but a large percentage of the people know. They bring up, oh, what about, did you hear about that David Grusch? I can say, yeah, I was there, it was awesome. And that changed. And I don't think Skinwalker Ranch made that happen. Maybe they helped it, they supported it, but what you're looking at there is from Christopher Mellon pushing with Lou Elizondo, and everyone can talk all this trash they want about Lou Elizondo, but I mean, his name is signing the release, right? The only videos that they've released besides the Metal Orb video that Kirkpatrick did release was signed by Lou Elizondo. And through Chris Mellon, through Tom DeLonge, to the Stars Academy is from that group. So I think they've pushed it, Skinwalker Ranch has added, it just brings the woo out there. Reading the book, and there is a lot of controversy on there. I have Chris Bartell, he worked at Skinwalker Ranch. He was out there 6-7 years out there. And his account of what happened is very different from what you're going to read in that book. And so his account is that a lot of it was just made up. Going back to Lakatsky and what's in that book. That's according to Chris Bartell. And he was out there for 7 years, often when these supposed experiments were going on. Now, that being said, if you look at the interview with Bigelow, he actually says that he did a lot of these experiments in small groups, on the side. And actually, Chris Bartell did take part in some of those experiments. So he does think something's there. He does think Skinwalker Ranch has some sort of anomaly there. Chris Bartell thinks it's related to Native American Indian heritage, or buried on a burial ground, sacred ground, etc. So, yeah, I guess I should check it out. All right, any last questions from anybody? Thanks again for being here. A lot of topics. Let's see. You didn't like the UAP hearings. I thought the UAP hearings were amazing. Like I said, I think if you've been living in this topic, it's probably, you're not going to hear anything new. But you have to realize is most people aren't, right? We're still in a very small sliver. If you just look at the YouTube numbers, right, the watch numbers, it's still a sliver of. It's not mainstream, right? But the UAP hearings, like I just said, is now when I talk to people, they've heard of it. So I don't think the UAP hearings were a joke at all. You see, Ryan Graves had made a great point of saying that these things were seen in hurricane class winds. So he confirmed that it wasn't calm winds when they're seeing these things. So you cannot remain stationary. And I just showed you guys the max speed of a Predator, 135 knots, right? So a Predator is not going to be able to fly east in the winds that we saw in some of those range Fowler reports. We saw very high range Fowler reports. So how is something going to stay stationary in those winds? It's very high. You're going to see some sort of heat source out of it. You're going to see something. So David Fravor's account, right? So I think a ton came out. So Hunsley, I have to disagree with you, man, on that one, 100%. I was there. It was awesome. Well, Mr. X, indeed, go with your question. It was actually 3 years. 2008 footage. It was 3 years, so 7, 8, and 9. Could be that, I don't know, it came back. Now, I guess the best argument is that it was a lens element. But again, how is that possible? If you watch the one video on Turkey UFO where the moon, there's the moon, and I tracked the moon phase. That's the correct moon phase. It's the exact height that it would be based on the time that's on the video. That is not a lens element. I don't even know how you would fake that. Like I'd like them to tell me how you would even fake that video. All right, guys. The near-death experiences. Yeah, I watched, stick to those. And I see people say interview Stephen Greer. I have interviewed Stephen Greer. I interviewed him just a few weeks, maybe 10 days before his disclosure, 12 June disclosure event, which was quite interesting. And I've covered that as well, man. I get a lot of hate when I cover those things. I don't know why. It's just still out there, I think. Yeah, I would love to talk to Bigelow. This is from Mike. Hey, Mike from Denmark. See you a lot, man. Thanks for being here. I don't know. A lot of people say, even people deep in UFO field say that it has a ton of information, ton of data at Skinwalker Ranch. Some of the best. UK astronomer. So I was working with Boris in the background. We actually drafted a few papers, worked together. And last was working with David Chang out in, he's in San Diego, trying to figure out if we can get 2 super fast cameras. I believe it's the Samsung X23, N23 camera system, high frame rate camera systems to work together to rule out insects, etc. But last I heard is they haven't been able to actually get captures with 2 dual cameras. But I haven't heard from him in a few months. So I'm assuming it's kind of probably a tough place to live. I should check back in with Boris and see what's going on. All right. Last question here from the, what do I want to see from the Senate hearing? I Yeah, I asked John Greenwald that. He said he'd like to see some actual questions up there, not kind of softballs. I would love to see the Inspector General up there. I would love to see him. I'd love to see some hostile witnesses, people that don't want to be there. What if we can get Sean Kirkpatrick up there and ask him questions? Did you talk to this person? Grusch says you talked to this guy. Did you talk to him? What did he say? What do you think is credible evidence? How are you defining credible evidence? Yeah. Thank you, Martin. Okay, last question. Oh, that was your question. I think it's more complicated than we might assume. That's what Leslie Kane, she's been studying it for years, and her recent book was Surviving Death, which talks about consciousness. If you look at Tom DeLonge's recent tweet, he talks about the others can bend space-time, and they can, what was it, trap human consciousness or somehow move human consciousness, shared consciousness, something like that. I think, yeah, when we figure out what reality is, what gravity is, then I think we'll have a much better idea. Consciousness is. We have so much we don't know, guys. Right? I mean, that's what I keep learning more and more. Is the more we learn, the more we realize that we don't know. So all of those things, yeah. That's why I love this topic. Why I love researching it. I love the history involved with it. That's why I'm in Turkey. One of the reasons. But that's it, guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all your questions. It also helps me kind of figure out where to devote my time. That video. Let's just look at that video one more time. This IR video. I think it's pretty amazing. So from a predator, I'll just finish on this thing. Sorry about that. Okay, so contrails, I mean, that's what it looks like, when you're rejoining on a tanker, except for this. You're not going to see this crazy orb thing. It matches the description, at least the size of a cube inside of a sphere from 2014. So amazing video. I don't know how you would fake that. And I even see this with like it just looks like an IR video to me. But yeah, if anyone, Predator pilots out there, does this look like a legit screen? Could that even be possible? And then Global Hawk pilots, I have no idea what a Global Hawk screen looks like, but I bet it's super secret. Oh, crazy stuff. All right, guys. Thanks everybody for being here. Thank you so much. Oh, I wasn't even showing it. Sorry about that. I was just you were watching me watch this video. You can see it now. Sorry, guys. Oh, what did we get here? Okay, there were two systems watching, infrared for Predator and overhead satellite. At this point, they were looking for MH370, as it was non-responsive for hours and it flew over a military installation. So that's how they say it got there. It's crazy that the lady I visited today here in Turkey, we came back to visit. She's like our Turkish grandma. When this video came up today, and I haven't seen her in 9 years. Tell me this is a synchronicity. I remember her specifically when this happened, MH370. And she came up to me and she said, Chris Bay, was it aliens? And I remember just thinking she was crazy. Yeah, that's what I remember. But, I don't know. Again, my point is getting a Predator there is super hard. So was it just orbiting for hours and we happen to have a Predator on site over wherever it was, or they happen to have a Predator? I guess something I'll have to look into, but that would be my biggest thing is Predators are not mobile, right? Just finding and intercepting this jet would be very difficult, but Also, I didn't see any windows, but maybe you're not going to see windows on an IR video. I think I'd have more detail. Yeah, but that's what I have on that one. So, all right. Thanks, A-Rod. Yeah, thanks for that info. I will tell you the IR video is compelling. So that's my thoughts on it. I know it was originally discounted, but I think it's interesting. Show the video. Thanks. Yeah, sorry, guys. So that's it. So if you look, that ball is around 15 feet. All right, we do have one. All right, you guys still want more? Let's see. Have you seen Michael Herrera's claim? I definitely have. All right, on Sean Ryan. I've watched part of it. Have I watched all of it? He claims he saw a football-sized UAPs trafficking humans. Football-sized UAPs. Football field size. Talking about that giant. I have seen it on Stephen Greer. I haven't seen it on Sean Ryan, but I'll check it out. Same as the Mosul orb. Mosul orb was quite a bit smaller, if you remember. Okay, football is kind of tiny. Yeah, and this is just we're ending this now, but this is a MH370 supposed video, also linked with the overhead video, which is of a satellite, apparently. Again, I've never seen a satellite video. Yeah, to me, it looked more like a Global Hawk. Yes, that's it. Football field. I'll check. I'll watch that. I'm curious if he says anything different. But yes, I have seen that. I made a short about it. I agree, Road Pirate Films. It's an amazing fake from 2014. Yeah, I mean, that's just amazing. And they put in a Predator there. I mean, it's an unbelievable video. Unbelievable. Yeah. But I would have if I could find it again. Last one, Chico. Write it again, and I'll answer your question. Maybe we can do. All right. Thanks, George. That's it. Yeah, a ton of info from the Discord. Please go to the UAP Society Discord if you haven't already. And that's it, guys. I think we covered all your super chats. Thanks again for being members, guys. Hopefully I covered all of yours as well. And thanks to the patrons. Thanks for being here, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. I hope to have a video out on Friday. And I'll see you then for the premiere. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.